and I'm joined today here with conscious media consultant Ava Montgomery. How you doing today, Ava?
I'm doing well. Thank you, King, for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. So, one of my initial questions I like to begin with is, and it's what's your spiritual energy number right now? And what I mean by that is zero being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome. Where would you say you fit in that spectrum?
You're asking me that after all of my technical difficulties. I would say I'm still probably pretty high in an eight.
That's great.
I'm
See,
just, yeah, just praying nothing else goes wrong with technology the way it is.
that's what I love to hear that. Thank you for indulging me with that question. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. You're
So
welcome.
my
Can I
first,
ask you what yours is?
mine's a 10.
Okay. Okay.
I stay at a 10. I believe
Okay.
that it's a choice, and I don't see any value choosing anything less. I don't get a award for it. I realize life is going to happen, but it's how we respond to it and what it is. So I still look at the fact that you're at an 8. That's still a high level. We can have a great conversation at an 8 or
Yeah.
10.
Oh, definitely. It will be definitely a great conversation. I'll get up to a 10 the more I talk with you.
I believe that. That's the attitude I love to hear.
Okay.
So my first question, as we talk about consciousness, and this question really fits people who choose to be conscious leaders or who accept this label as a conscious leader, and that is, what do you see as your purpose in life?
Okay, so I've been thinking about that, and I think I have a number of purposes, but that they are all rooted in learning from the strength, courage, and wisdom and sheer genius and will of those that came before me, and not grading my gifts and talents provided by such an awe inspiring legacy is my purpose. So, whatever I do, that's what I want to commit to that purpose.
Absolutely, I love that. I love that. And as I said before, this consciousness gets thrown out a lot. I see that so much in social media. I see it in so many books, and different people have different definitions of how to define conscious. So I always ask the different people I interview, how do you define a conscious leader?
Well, I think that's a big evolving definition. For me, I feel like there are a lot of aspects to consciousness, mainly being thoughtful and aware. Um, and I think being thoughtful and aware, I like to think of it as demonstrating. I can't talk today. Okay, demonstrating conscious concern. So to me, that means just being aware of the content that we create. A conscious leader always seeks to know what they don't know. It's someone that, whether they are affected by something or not, they have an awareness of how something can impact someone else. And they use that awareness in empathetic ways. And so part of my definition, as I was saying, is the conscious concern. And that means recognizing the power that speakers, writers, and other types of content creators on the continuum of content production, including sponsors, promoters, have to cause or repair harm by their words, narratives, text, talk, audio, image, and imaging, including symbolism, through their content. And conscious leaders have a deep curiosity and are consciously competent and seek to grow conscious competencies. So I know this is a lot, but I just feel like they are grounded, but they're not immovable. They share knowledge with other people and aren't afraid to uncover and speak the truth. And they also understand the importance of timing, language, and situational awareness when speaking the truth.
Wow, very thought provoking answer, very detailed answer, but I definitely see the value in that. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're
No,
welcome. There's more, but I edited myself. as
I,
conscious leaders do.
I understand. Now, one of my questions that I love to ask individuals, and this is a question I look to establish relationships with people, or that's important when I establish relationships with individuals, is understanding, do they have a grateful spirit, right? And so, in that space, what would you say you're most grateful for?
It was hard. It's hard to select something that I'm most grateful for because I'm grateful for so many things that are seen and unseen. Of course, my family's health and well-being, and my health and well-being, and my friends are. I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for discernment. I'm grateful when people learn to demonstrate emotional intelligence and self control and impulse control, and that they demonstrate them in those seconds or moments when anger threatens to make them their most hateful and violent. I think they and we as a society need to have them employ and demonstrate those skills to avoid a lot of the violence we're seeing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you're in the business of media consulting. You have a company called Conscious Media Consulting. So this is
Hmm.
kind of a two-part question. What is the mission of Conscious Media Consulting, and what was the inspiration behind creating Conscious Media Consulting?
Okay. So, our mission is to use content literacy to create consciously created content that rights historical wrongs and inaccuracies. And we see them being perpetuated in current media. And we want to also create new content that helps media consumers develop media literacy skills. And the inspiration for that is that we see just too many people being so influenced by media that it's affecting their psyche, their mental health, their self-esteem, their cultural and community esteem. Because I think that people don't realize just how influential media is and how it has been so influential for generation after generation after generation. And we really felt that in order to address the problem, we needed to get to the root of it, which is content. Whether it was content from 100 years ago, 200 years ago, it was still content that was disseminated to the masses and usually had some spin or tone to it of superiority and inferiority. That just gets carried on from generation to generation. And so that was the inspiration for us to create or to establish conscious media consulting, is to really get to the heart of the issue by looking at the content and the way it's constructed.
Absolutely. I love that answer because you're absolutely right. That's something that a lot of folks we tend to take for granted. But I love the fact that you decided to take a proactive approach to it and create a company to make sure that going forward, that folks understand the importance of creating media that is inclusive, that's not harmful, and that is empathetic, as you say, show emotional intelligence in what you're writing and what you're creating. Which leads me
Right.
to my next question, which is, what do you see as some of the common mistakes that small businesses make when it comes to creating content?
Well, I think they don't, in a nutshell, they don't have a wide enough lens. They don't look at things from perspectives of other people who might be consuming their content. And a lot of it is because we are so conditioned not to see things that are just natural to us to think and to believe. So that, I think, is the biggest thing, is that people are not, they don't have enough of expanded lenses to be able to catch some of these things that could be offensive. Then there's another thing that goes along with that, which is they need to understand the concept of can be. It's not necessarily, a lot of times content creators look for will it be offensive, and they don't really go far enough to think can it be offensive. And that's just a simple consideration to think, can this be offensive? How can it be offensive? And then start really delving into the content in ways which they might discover how things can be offensive. And then I would say another thing is that a lot of content creators and organizations, they don't have people at the table who have lived experiences. And having that lived experience, whether it be a woman, a Black person, someone of color, someone who's disabled, having those lenses at the table can pick up on a lot of things that other people may not see. So undervaluing lived experiences, I think, is another lacking in small business and medium-sized businesses who want to create content.
Wow. Definitely can see where that's problematic, and you see that in the bias content that is created because of the lack of having, as you say, experiences, or having those diversity of people who had those lived experiences to bring those perspectives to the conversation.
I'm sorry. I cannot believe this. Can we start over?
Well, unfortunately, we're live. We can.
That's what happens with live. Something got stuck in my throat and I couldn't speak, but I didn't mean to let my coughing interrupt your speaking. So please carry on and I'll get it together.
No problem. We can make some edits on the replay. Most of our audience watches this on the replay anyway, so that's fine.
Okay. Well, if they don't, they know that this is real life, and sometimes things happen, but we got to recover and keep it moving.
There you go.
That's my mission.
There you go. Absolutely. And this audience ones that will bear with us anyway, because of what our mission is and what we're building on. Now,
I appreciate your audience. And I did want to say, though, that if they go to my website, they can pick up an ebook that's called 6 Awesome Tips for Conscious Content, creating content that will give them even more tips to avoid unconscious content and potentially offensive content.
Excellent. We definitely going to provide those links when we post this, and give you an opportunity to get that website address as we go forward as well. Now, speaking of your website and doing my research for you, I came across a term that you use, and I want to get a little more clarification on this. It is, what are some of the exclusive consciousness-raising analytical frameworks that you use to analyze content where missteps often occur? Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the things that I think we do particularly well at and specialize in is not using artificial intelligence to create our documents. We are kind of old school, like the master craftsmen and craftswomen that do things by hand so that we can see what might be wrong. And a lot of times content creators use artificial intelligence to create their content and to scan it for things that artificial intelligence hasn't been programmed to recognize. So we use our eyes, our brains, and our lived experience to analyze content and evaluate it. And then we have several tools that we've designed that we believe analyze and evaluate content with wide lenses as well. So first and foremost, we look at content through the lenses of conscious concern. This is a term and a tool that your audience can use by just asking themselves and of their content, does my content meet and reflect the definition of conscious concern? And there are other considerations that we take into account as well. But that's a starting point for everyone. We also have our 6 spheres of conscious concern, which looks at 3 specific areas where offense might be or is most likely to occur. And so we really analyze through a series of questions and internal tools that we use to analyze content in that way and evaluate it in that way. And then we have our listen in, watch out, and word up training framework that is for people who want to learn how to analyze and evaluate their own content. And we use real life examples of historic and current media and show how it does condition the subconscious and how they present subconsciously in content and how to recognize them.
Excellent. and see the value of why it's necessary and the services you provide as well. Now, shifting the conversation, kind of going back to you and understanding you as an individual, as a conscious leader, um, what would you say that you are most committed to?
Mm. I'm committed to participating in discourses that are held with compassionate candor, which to me means that we can speak the truth while still being a decent human being.
Hmm, absolutely, absolutely. That decent human being thing is important, and I think that's where we look to, at least from my perspective, I look to build connection, intelligent tribes with individuals who want to see themselves as good people and want to make a difference in the world. And
Right.
that brings the question, you know, where is there one decision you made? And if so, what was it that you made in your life that you would say has been the most significant and meaningful that you've made in your life? A pivot, so to speak.
Mm. Okay. I do have one, it's been several events in my life that have been significant, but there's one event that happened when I was 21. And I need to preface this a little bit with a backstory, if you don't mind. And
No,
that is, okay, good. My grandmother was what you would call an original Private Benjamin. She worked in the 60s as a civilian for the military and was stationed overseas. And there weren't many Black women who had taken that route. And so she forged a path that enabled her to expose her daughters and granddaughters and great granddaughters to mind expanding travel. So when I was 21, I traveled solo throughout Europe for almost a year, and that was in the early 90s. Everyone in my circle said, "You're going alone? Aren't you afraid?" Because Black women just weren't traveling like they have been in the last 20 years or so. And so now there are all kinds of travel groups to support travel abroad and exposure to diverse cultures. But I say that was a most defining time in my life because it planted seeds of awareness that have continued to bloom throughout my personal life and support my professional expertise and aspirations.
I actually, can definitely relate to that, respect that, because traveling in my 20s definitely helped broaden my context and take me away from America being the center of the universe and beginning to see how people in other countries live. And I realized that there is value outside of America. There's great cultures outside of America, and there's great people outside of America. So I definitely recommend that everybody looks to travel. And I think that's one of the reasons why we still have so much hate in this particular country, because most people that really have this hatred towards someone because of their race or because of their gender or because of their ethnicity, their religion, or whatever the hate may be, 9 times out of 10, they never really been outside of the United States for any significant period of time. And I'm not talking about just traveling to a tropical island. I'm talking about the country where you have to live with someone else's culture and you are the immigrant in that particular context for a moment. You get a chance to see their perspective. And I think that's what gives people a chance to broaden their perspectives and grow. And,
Absolutely.
you know, now as we talk about Economic Connector, my business is centered around making connections and connecting people, but I'm a very systematic thinker in that process. I have a very methodical set of strategies and processes I use to go about making my connections and building relationships. But it all starts with understanding who I am first and hold myself accountable to certain key virtues that I look for first in myself and I look for in others. So in saying all that, do you have certain key characteristics that you look for when you establish a new connection with someone?
Yeah, I do. I try to remain open to anyone who wants to aspire to be more conscious and teach and learn with me. But I definitely look for an individual or an organization who has a history of consciousness practices, because that's what it is. It's an ongoing learning and practice. And um, an organization who or an individual who is aspiring for that and is willing to have candid conversations done with compassionate candor, of course, I'm always in learning mode, and I appreciate that in other people, and I think those make great partnerships.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm always curious to hear what people have to say about that. And this is a great segue into my next question, because one of the processes I do is I believe is that in this new world that we're dealing with the knowledge world, and especially with the internet and then having a global mindset, what I realized that everything now is about co-creation. And in
Hmm.
order to co-create, you got to find the right partners. And so identifying the right strategic partner, I believe, is key. So who would you say would be a great strategic partner for you to kind of look at co-creating on your mission, not only with your company, but kind of your purpose in life as well?
And that's a really good question. I agree with what you said that co-creation is important, and I think that many organizations are missing an opportunity to co-create in unique ways. Because from my perspective, everything is content, whether it's formal or informal, official or unofficial. Everyone who engages with media is a content creator, media sponsor, and promoter in one form or another. That even if you're just sharing a tweet or a post, you are sponsoring and promoting someone's content. So, with new and expanding avenues for content creation and media consumption, traditional methods for understanding content messaging and for demonstrating media literacy cannot be textbook as usual in design. So, those professions, including but not limited to human resources, communications, travel related businesses, educational professionals, must all gain some form of content literacy skills to engage with content in conscious ways. And these are just a few examples of professions that have many touch points with diverse peoples in diverse spaces. So they must recognize that they have an influence of what we refer to of inequities if they are not conscious about how they treat their content. Their clients, their customers, or their constituents will recognize that, and so they need to make sure that those people have experiences at every step and overall that are inclusive and positive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, in reading your resume, your bio, going to your website, and then the research I've done on you, you definitely accomplished a lot of great things in your life. You travel overseas, you live overseas currently, something I'm going to be working towards doing myself. So you definitely are a person who has gone through some trials and tribulations, but at the same time, you've made some major accomplishments and things that you have to be proud of. What I'm curious of is there one thing that you would say that has been the most rewarding thing that you've accomplished in your life?
This is a really, I think, a difficult question for me to answer because I like to say anything that moves me forward, I'm really proud of. But I narrowed it down, and I've been trying to think of an answer that isn't parenthood related, but everything seemed to pale in comparison. So, my most rewarding accomplishment has been to raise an impressive daughter. And it's not just because she is a capable, decent human being, it's that because she is those things and more, that I am able to be adventurous and make some moves in the second half of my life that I probably wouldn't be able to do, like establish CMC LLC, if she wasn't as capable and self sufficient as she is. And so you probably know the expression, because of them, we can. I say for me, because she is, I can.
Wow.
She's really allowed me to do some experimentation with where I want to go in my career path, with where I want to live, because I know that she can handle herself when I'm away, and that is an enormous amount of freedom. So it's parenthood, but it's being the kind of parent that raises the kind of child that lets you go and be your own independent adult again at later in life, and that's invaluable to me.
Absolutely, I can see how they can be, and that's a wonderful thing that you would say about your daughter, and
Yeah.
conscious of that impact of the freedom that it gives you, but at the same time, based off the great job you
Yeah.
did in establishing parenting and raising a great child at the same time. So now, one of the things that
Yeah.
I'm
And
curious.
the parents really need. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
was
go
just going
ahead.
to say we really need to reward parents who do jobs with their children and can then have them not only be contributing society contributing adults to society, but that the parents can still use some of the potential that they still have in them to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, um, now I'm always curious to know what conscious leaders do to keep themselves in a positive state of mind. So I think it's kind of difficult when you take the moniker of a conscious leader. You'd always at least have a positive state of mind, or at least be in a position where you're not talking down or being negative to individuals. So I know that there has to be, at least for me, certain morning rituals and even rituals that I go through to put myself in that state, engage with people. So I'm curious to know, are there any morning rituals that you kind of go through to kind of put yourself in that state to be prepared to go out here and deal with the world?
Yeah, and I like that more that they prepare me to deal with the world than keep me positive because particularly in these times, it's not always easy to stay positive. But I do some things that help to keep my mind in balance so I can sort through the madness and not let it penetrate and affect me. So before I even get out of bed, I do some yoga stretches, which remind me while I'm doing them to be in a place of gratitude. And then as I get my day started, I drink some water, I go for a walk or ride my bike. And when I have access to a pool, I love going for a morning swim. And I use the clarity that I get from those activities to write out or revise my to do list for the day or the coming days. Then I like to check in with world news over my morning coffee or tea. And it may sound counterintuitive during these times to be a news junkie, but I don't believe that no news is good news. So I really try to be aware of what's going on in the world by staying informed. And it's a foundation, I believe, of consciousness. I don't want to fall into a trap of toxic positivity where I bury my head in the sand and ignore what's real and disturbing. But optimism is, to me, best achieved by being informed by credible information and using it to understand what I can do to be the change and make a difference in a way that warrants me being optimistic.
Understood. Understood. Now, these last two questions that we get, bringing the interview to a close are probably some of my favorite questions to ask of the interview because it gives me a better understanding, a great understanding of who the individual is, and hopefully my listening audience as well. And that is, and I'm going to define this answer of my question as I read it out to you as well. So, is
Okay.
there a kin connection you would like to meet? And what I mean by kin connection, I'm not referring to my company name or my name or someone directly in my network. Two is this label I've created on a person who's achieved a certain level of success, whether it's financial, whether it's career, whether it's professional, and personal, that you admire. And it's someone that you had the opportunity to meet that, if you brought your resources and you were to co-create something with this individual, you all can make something great happen. And I have a process for how to find and meet these individuals where when you do meet them, it's not the leverage of you're here and they're there. So I'm not saying as a fan, again, but someone that you bring your equal resources, social capital, intellectual capital, skills to the conversation, and then you all kind of work together to make something great happen. Like for me, my example would be someone, it would be Magic Johnson. He's not because he's a celebrity basketball player. I mean, that's cool. It's more about his post work that he's done, his community building, his business leadership, his acumen when it comes to good relationships, and him being a great advisor to folks. And I believe that him and I came to the table, we can do some great building around the conscious community initiative that I'm doing. Because I know that's something that's near and dear to his heart as well. So, with
Mhm.
that context, who would be a great king connection for you that you would like to?
Wow. My wish list or my dream collaboration would be with Ava DuVernay. She just puts out such incredible content that's truth telling, that's informative, it's fantastical, it's loving. I mean, in all of her works, I feel like she's just very sincere and real, particularly, say, for example, Queen Sugar, really representing, and her team, of course, as well, but representing through the writing the lives of Black people and the struggles, the happiness, and the joy. So, if I had a celebrity, it would be Ava DuVernay, as well as LeBron James, because he's doing some really positive things in the media production space. So, I'd like to work with him. But as a mere mortal, I think I would like to connect to people who want to live in an equitably educated society, people who understand that as we always have, we are living in or with disinformation. And now, however, there are means of disseminating that disinformation faster than ever. And it continues to purposely cause division and keep people distracted from the real problems, which impact everyone. But working together to make accurate, conscious content more readily available than misinformed or ill-informed content would be my dream. So I would like to work with people who want to really get a handle on media literacy, content literacy, to improve things on a global scale.
Absolutely. I can definitely respect that. Definitely want to support that. And we look at ways you and I can kind of co-create in that with those kind of goals, with those specific strategies that we can definitely help people become, as you say, more media literate, more content literate, and be more intentional about the messages they're conveying.
Yeah, absolutely.
My last question would be: is there a book that has been the most influential in your life, or maybe a book that's been the most influential in the past couple of weeks that you want to share our listening audience as? This is a book that you really would love to recommend, or it could be a series of books. I don't want to limit you to one book, but whatever your spirit instructs you to say, the book that comes to your mind.
Yeah. Well, I recommend different books to different people based on our conversation and their needs. But I, of course, would recommend Listen In, Watch Out, Word Up, my book. But what two books that have been very influential in Listen In, Watch Out, Word Up and my life as an adult are Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed and Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. Those two books, one, Paulo Freire, The Pedagogy of Oppressed, really talks about how oppressed people can shed the fear of being in freedom and liberation. And Howard Zinn really gives detailed, interesting historical accounts of systems of oppression from the people who experienced it. So he covers a wide range of people who have been historically marginalized in the U.S. And it's just a fascinating account. So those are the two that I would recommend if people want to really develop some consciousness and empathy and some awareness of the historical acts that have taken us to where we are today in the U.S. history.
Great books. I definitely concur with you on those two recommendations. So,
Hmm.
as we conclude our interview, I know that you created a gift for our listening audience that when we repost this video, we're going to definitely add the link to the YouTube video that you share. And I want to give you an opportunity to share any closing thoughts that you may have. And of course, your contact information for those interested in learning more about you and who want to connect with you as well.
Oh, well, thank you for that opportunity. I think I just want to say we have the ability to become more conscious, and we should take that because the world sorely needs that kind of mindset right now. we need to break down, as we have always needed, the divisions that are so superficial and that really distract the world and us from being collective and unified against a system that is really oppressing all of us. We may say because we are this color or that color or this race or this gender that we are not being oppressed, but as long as there is division, we are being oppressed. And so take the opportunities that you can to gain knowledge um, and to share that knowledge and demonstrate that knowledge. And then just to go to my website, cmcllc.org, and sign up for. There's lots of resources, including the ebook that I mentioned, as well as some videos that talk about the purpose for conscious content and how to create it, that can get them started with some kind of very easy and basic things to do.
Excellent, excellent. And one last thing I want to ask you is, you sent me a gift. Can you kind of talk about what the gift is and why you created a gift so that folks can look forward to watching it and understanding it within the context?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yes, I created this is courses, one of our signature courses through our new consciousness school, which is a service of CMC LLC, that we provide personal and professional development and growth courses. One of those courses is 321 Conscious Pivot, which is all about being thoughtful and strategic when making changes in our lives, not avoiding doing things in a haphazard way that won't get you the results that you envision. So what I've given as a gift to your audience is an introduction to that course, which is very comprehensive, comes with a workbook, gives some ideas of areas to consider when making a change, the ripple effects. And in addition to that, to the course itself, the mini course, I'll say, there is an ebook on why making change is hard but important, and a motivational audio to keep people inspired and moving forward.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Ava, thank you very much for taking the time and investing your energy, your time, and your thoughts into this interview. Listen, audience, thank you all for tuning in to King Connections again. And I want to thank everybody for being present and being with us and joining this wonderful conversation. And Ava, you and I are going to do some great things going forward. This won't be the last time you and I work together. And I want to wish you and everyone else that's listening a blessed and productive weekend.
I look forward to it, and same to you. Thank you for this opportunity.